This is the Bonus Section Podcast, episode number 82. Are you really open-minded? Are you the type of person that knows you were meant for something greater in this lifetime, and that somewhere inside of you there's just this bigger version trying to break through, but in spite of all your self-development attempts, you just can't seem to find the way up there? Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Bonus Section and the host of this podcast, and a person just like you trying to learn how to live the most fulfilling life possible. Now, to help you take immediate action to get moving in a better direction, we take all the notes from each episode and we post them at freethinkingtools.com. freethinkingtools.com. Just like it sounds, phonetically, spell it out, freethinkingtools.com. Some notes over there to help you do that. Think. Just sit down with the notes from a couple episodes. We do the latest two and then we turn them over. And we just want you to think, right? That's all we want you to do. We want you to sit down, take some time, and try to really think your way up to those goals, up to a better way. It's possible. It is. Because I practice this stuff. I don't just preach it. And it helps me. It helps my kids. It helps my clients. It helps everybody. It's good stuff. All right? All right. Are you really open-minded? Now, this is a question I ask myself. Now, in the Bonus Section podcast, a lot of this is me thinking aloud after being challenged week by week in all of these contexts in my life. And I started asking myself this. Wow, how easy it is to go from being open-minded or thinking I'm open-minded to not being. And I'll just give you the context of how it came to be a podcast this week, is that I picked up a book. Actually, if you're watching the video podcast, here's a copy of it. 1 Million Followers by Brendan Kane. And I'm always learning in a context of business or just recreational reading, trying to challenge myself to keep up on my vocabulary, keep that neural network healthy up there. But from time to time, I really dig in understanding in a business framework how to get better. And from time to time, I find a really good strategic how-to book, and that's one of them. I did a whole podcast. If you want to go and you'll see it at the Realty Classroom when it comes out. That's my real estate coaching podcast. There's a whole review of it over there in that context for real estate agents. Maybe that helps. But just a quick recommendation there, but more so about my mindset. It sounds like a really clickbait title. So the first point here is, when new information feels threatening, ask yourself why. Why would that title threaten me, I thought? What would that mean? Did it just feel overwhelming? And I'm sitting here actually going through this therapeutic process while I'm doing the podcast because I am trying to think back. I know that I saw this book somewhere a couple of times. Now, I'm busy. So my brain, like any other animal brain, has to be careful not to burn too many calories and burn itself out so that I can be effective at a few things. So maybe it was that, but maybe it was that title that was scary, overwhelming, or worse, it triggered my cynicism to say, nah, you can't do that. Because if you dig in there, it says how I built a massive social following in 30 days. Well, that just sounds unrealistic to any of us, right? You look at your Facebook profile and you have, less than 500 friends, or you've started a Facebook page and nobody even sees it. I get it. I get the pain of thinking about the fact that you see all these influencers out there as we know them today, and they have all of this following and they have this social leverage and equity, and it's painful to watch them and how them and why not us. I get it. I'm very empathetic to it. Can feel very overwhelming. But they had to learn, and they figured something out. And a lot of the social influencers I know in a business context have been at it a long time. So they've been learning all that time, and they've been improving, and their teams have been growing, but they all started just chiseling away with a chisel and a hammer at some simple first step. So because content and media distribution, I'm so far into content and media distribution, I now own a website company. We build both expert sites now for individuals, including my daughter, who's an actress in LA. At the time of this recording, you'll see Jenny Griffin, thejennygriffin.com. You can go to a website and you can see one of those expert sites. You can go to thegriffin.co, or as I work on it right now, thebonussection.com for this podcast. I'm redoing all of the technical stuff so that the media that I create here can not only be put up in long form, it could be cut up into small pieces. It's a lot. There's a lot going on there. But I didn't start like that. So now I'm trying to ask myself, am I comfortable? Have I gotten to a point in my understanding where I've stopped learning in that context? And how dare I be in the website business with my partner who's very technically strong, and my obligation is to be the strategic partner? And how do people really use this technology? So I asked myself, why not dig in? So I did. I downloaded the audiobook and I really started to listen to it. And what I listen for when I listen to an audiobook, how strategically presented is the information? I know that sounds like a big word, but what I mean is somebody telling me how to do something, because I'm exasperated listening to people go on and drone on and on and on, and they never really get to the point. Well, what to do? Okay, maybe I don't want to spend any money with you yet, so just tell me what to do first. And if I can go do that and make some money, maybe I'll give it back to you, and I'll buy one of your how-to-do courses, or I'll buy some of your consultation, your consulting, or whatever it might be. So I think we get so cynical about being used or taken advantage of that we just shut down and we're not open-minded. And I felt like I was at one of those inflection points, right, where I had gone from being really open-minded about the subject of content and social to maybe not. And maybe I was just comfortable. Maybe I was just a little bit burnt out. I don't know what it is, but I asked myself why, and I dug in and I listened to the audio. And it was good. And it was so good and intriguing and important to me, I immediately went on Amazon and ordered the book, and that was there in 2 days. And so you see that next to me. And by the way, I'll show you, if you're watching the video podcast, you're going to see in here, I'll actually give you the real look at it. The way I have it on my desk is there's a yellow highlighter and there's a pen. And let me see if I could get to a page. I've got a bookmark there. Let me get to a page where I have really marked it up, where something really hits me. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, here's a page where I went bananas and started circling things, and it's just a summary of a page, but it was good, right? So if you're on the video podcast, you can see there that I have gone in there and highlighted and bookmarked everything. So you know I'm upriver on this one. And the point is that as I started to think, what took me so long to get there, I started to understand, the second point here is understand that the first one was, I asked myself why I felt threatened by this. Second point was understanding that the law of corroborating evidence hurts open-mindedness. If you're watching the video podcast behind me on that shelf back there is Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. In there are laws of human behavior. And the first time I ever heard the law of corroboration was in Cialdini's book, Influence. Cialdini is spelled Cialdini. And the law of corroborating evidence hurts open-mindedness. Let me explain this. When we have a very firm belief, or we've evolved. So for example, in my content and media strategy, I had evolved to a pretty organized level. As I sit here creating content today, I have a very organized formula. I have a couple of members of my team that are virtual, one a video editor, one a distribution editor, and they help me get this out there. I even have a mastermind now with one of my own coaching clients in real estate, and his guru brain, our 800-pound, 26-year-old brain that sits with us every week, and we talk about all this stuff. And so I started to think to myself, my gosh, Cialdini's right. How quickly did I dismiss new evidence that might challenge that what I was doing wasn't good enough and that there was a lot more? And I thought about corroborating evidence means I would only look for evidence that said what I was doing now was enough. That crushes your open-mindedness, right? Just think about how quickly it can sneak up on you. And I know, because I'm like you, there's certain amounts of energy I have and don't have. You know, it's been a long 2 weeks. You can hear it in my voice. If you listen to me on a regular basis, I sound nasally. I've got either bronchitis or pneumonia on the tail end of having COVID. 2 weeks of just stress on my body, and I never get sick. So this is a real anomaly for me. And so there are real moments like that where you can really bog your mind down and you just don't have the energy to keep learning. But that open-mindedness or lack thereof can really cause you even more stress. Here's why. Because if what you're doing requires a lot of work now, and you're still not getting the return on the investment of that time, you can get very frustrated. And the worst thing that could happen is you have one of these psycho-cybernetic mind steering systems by Maxwell Maltz, also on the shelf behind me. You can have one of these incredible snapback effects and say, oh, none of this worked for me, and I'm going to stop doing it all. And that's a disaster. That kills all progress to that point. So, you're at a really dangerous point here when you're falling prey to the law of corroborating evidence to say, I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing. I don't need to learn more. I don't get open-minded, and I don't get in there. The third point here is how to get out of that. I'm always trying on this podcast to help you get out of that. Well, here's what I did, and maybe it will help you. I listened to the entirety of contrasting opinions. And I don't really mean that Brendan Kane's book was contrasting against what I believe. It was just coming dressed as a lot more work. That's all. And I don't mean physical work, because I'm really set up right now to get into Facebook Ads Manager. I've already done it before and spend a little bit of money on content and what, it might be. And by the way, one of those corroborating evidence things that I saw very strongly rail against this and lack of open-mindedness were the critics. And even one was my own daughter, the actress, when I told her about this. Well, I don't want to buy followers. Well, I don't even know what buy followers mean, because you can't really just buy followers. You can buy their attention from Facebook and put your content in and hope that they follow. That's the actual strategy that all these folks are using. They're not buying something for the sake of buying something. Sure, maybe they get a bunch of people to follow them that aren't necessarily good for their brand or aren't supporting their brand, but you never know how that social share gets in the hands of the right avatar. And I'm not going to go down read the book. You want to know the specifics of how this all works? Read the book, okay? It's a high recommendation for me right now. It's a 5-star recommendation out of 5 stars. But I started listening to all of this and reading all of this, and some of it contrasted with what I believed or understood or I just didn't know, and that leads me to the bonus section today, okay? It was just a good reminder that it's critical to always be learning. ABL, remember that. ABL, ABL, ABL. Always be learning, especially about things that really matter to you. In whatever context, in relationships, in business, school, whatever. Well, what really matters to you? Because that's where you really have to dig in and constantly be learning. And you know what I think happens at some point in time is that you develop a good reset button. So let's just say you get sick like I did for a couple of weeks and you lose that energy and you lose that enthusiasm. A good reset is to just get back into the learning process. Listen slowly. I can't read a book. I can't keep my eyes open. Yeah, but you can listen to the audio, or you can listen to a YouTube video. You don't have to watch it. So there are things that we can do just to kickstart this and just go back to the subjects that are interesting to you. Don't get caught up in drifting down into nonsense that doesn't matter to you, because that only agitates you more. That only makes you more cynical and then ultimately depressed. It's a slippery slope there. So always be learning about something or challenging yourself on something that matters to you. And when a piece of evidence comes up that maybe what you believed was wrong, go back to open-mindedness and saying, that's interesting. And try it out. Just try it out. Try to do something differently. And don't dismiss it quickly. I told you, I tried it and it didn't work for me. Well, did you try it correctly? Go back to the expert. Put a message on their website and say, I must be doing something wrong. I thought I did exactly what you told me in this book or this audio or this thing. It didn't quite work. Social engagement, if you find the right people out there, they're very willing to socially engage with you, as am I. All right, let me go back and summarize this today. The question on the table is, are you really open-minded? And it's a question I had to ask myself. And that's how I decided to do this podcast today, because it came around me looking at, I'll hold it up one more time for the video podcast, 1 million followers, how he built a massive social following in 30 days. Sounded unrealistic to me. So I got skeptical. But then the first point of the podcast was, when new information like that feels threatening, ask yourself why. I asked myself and I got beyond it. The second point is, you have to understand that the law of corroborating evidence hurts open-mindedness. If you want to learn more about the law of corroborating evidence, pick up the book, Influence by Robert Cialdini, C-I-A-L, Cialdini, D-I-N-I, okay? Really good. That means you're only looking for evidence to support what you already believe. That's closed-mindedness. 3, listen to the entirety of a contrasting opinion. Don't do somebody a disservice and skim something. Oh, he's talking about paid media, buying followers. Don't do that. It's a huge mistake. In the bonus section today, just remember, it's critical to always be learning. ABL, 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 always be learning. I'll summarize it by saying this. I recently started reading a book called 1 Million Followers by Brendan Kane that I'd previously dismissed as clickbait. However, when I heard Brendan speak online, something told me to scrap my cynicism and lean in. Although I'm certainly a believer in the power of content and social media, I realized that I'd become too comfortable and was looking only for the evidence that supported what I was already doing and that was enough. The effectiveness of the strategies outlined in this book helped me realize that to maintain complete open-mindedness, I need to ABL, always be learning. All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get moving towards your goals faster, because we take all the notes from each episode and we post them for a short period of time, just a couple episodes, so you don't get overwhelmed and do nothing, at freethinkingtools.com. Just the way it sounds, freethinkingtools.com. We give you instant access. You can print them out. You can download them. Sit there with a cup of coffee, whatever. You're comfortable, and think. That's all I want you to do. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also post our content on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the bonus section channel. The bonus section channel. Lots of fun things coming. You'll see new websites, merch. We got to get into the merch over here at the bonus section. Get inspired and motivated. We'd also appreciate it, of course, if you would join our mission of becoming people for others. This is my passion project, and it is my mantra. Become a person for others. Share our content with other people just like you so that they get some help and they can be provoked into thought. Maybe you two start talking to each other or you get a group going around this stuff and think. But remember this. Nobody's coming for you. Absolutely nobody. Nobody's coming for you. So go get to work on yourself and a better plan for your goals. And we'll see you in the next episode to try to provoke you to do just that. Thanks again.